Part 27. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 261. He was wearing a sky blue gown and looked down as if he was looking for something. Shenling also saw the two bright red and eye-catching iron-legged crabapple petals in her father's hair. She thought about the few clues they had found, then lowered her head and saw a touch of red soil on her father's black shoes. All the clues were correct, and Shenling could not think of a second person who was more qualified than his father. At this moment, she stood there, her whole body feeling cold. If the father is that person, then who is the son? Shenling was still thinking about the conversation between Shen Changfeng and Niu. What if it's an illegitimate child? What if it's someone from our family? Now everything is right. As for who the illegitimate child was, Shenling immediately thought of one person, Shen Changjun. This is said to be an orphan in the Shen family whose parents both died. His father said he took him to educate him because he felt sorry for him. However, his father has always valued Shen Changjun far more than Shen Changfeng. Shenling only felt as if her life was living in a huge lie. She felt worthless for her brother. She was just ignored by her father, while her brother had suffered from his father's torture and suppression for so many years. And her mother, although her mother also raised several young men, she never thought of killing her father. My mother fed my father well and worked hard to support the Shen family. How dare my father create an illegitimate child and plot to kill my mother behind the scenes? What are you doing here? Shen Fuxian asked Shenling with a serious face. Shenling said casually, my brother and I. But before she finished speaking, when she turned around, there was no one behind her. Shen Changfeng and Niu didn't know where they were going. Shenling immediately changed his mind and said, I came to see my brother to discuss something with him. When Shen Fuxian heard this, he didn't think much about it, but said, your brother is uneducated and has no skills. Stay with him when you have nothing to do, lest you learn bad things too. Shenling's eyebrows were lowered. Even though his mind was in chaos, he still asked calmly, is father looking for something? Do you want my daughter to help? A hint of guilt flashed in Shen Fuxian's eyes, and he said, I'm not looking for anything, I just happened to be here for a stroll. You should go back. There are many young female guests at home today, and I want you to accompany me. Shenling nodded and said, Father, please go back too. Mother was sending people to look for you just now. Shen Fuxian originally wanted to continue looking for the purse, but Princess Shenling even moved out, so he did not dare to stay here any longer. The father and daughter walked a few steps together before they separated at a fork in the road. Shenling stood there and waited quietly for a moment. The bushes nearby moved and Shen Changfeng pulled Niu out. What a risk, what a risk, I almost got talked about by him again. As Shen Changfeng spoke, he reached out and plucked the leaves off his head, and then carefully arranged Niu's hair. If it were normal, Shen Changfeng would not necessarily avoid his father, but he still had Niu with him, and he also wanted to save face. He could not be scolded by his father in front of Niu. Shenling forced a smile on her face and asked, brother, don't you have anything else to say? A trace of guilt flashed in Shen Changfeng's eyes, and then he said helplessly, okay, it's me who's bragging. My father is scolding me, not criticizing me. Every time he sees me, he scolds me a few times, and picks up trouble even when he has nothing to do. Shenling thought that her brother was simple-minded. He only knew that his father liked to find faults, but he did not expect that his father was really evil enough to kill his wife. Brother, father is wearing a sky blue gown today, Shenling reminded. Shen Changfeng still didn't think too much and said, isn't he always like this? He likes sky blue the most. He always says that sky blue is elegant. He also likes bamboo. He thinks that all people who don't like bamboo are vulgar people. Only he is the most elegant. Others they are all common people. I am different, I want to dress beautifully. Shen Changfeng did not realize at all that when he said these words, his father, who was like a mountain in his heart, had become a villain. When Shen Ling saw Niu Niu on the side, her expression suddenly became very strange. My dear, you've seen it all, right? Shen Ling asked. Niu Niu nodded hesitantly and said, but the prince-in-law, he is the husband of the princess's aunt, could it be that the person he wants to kill is? Niu Niu couldn't speak anymore. The little girl was only 6 years old. She had never experienced such a vicious thing. The most vicious former adoptive father in her memory, Zhang Guangzong, just let his adopted daughter die and did not say anything about directly killing her. Shen Changfeng felt like he was struck by lightning. What are you talking about? What kind of murder? Father wants to kill mother? How is this possible, even though they are all wearing sky blue, even though? Shen Changfeng suddenly couldn't speak anymore. No matter how stupid he is, he will know something is wrong after being singled out. That illegitimate child is. Shen Changfeng said incoherently. Shen Ling exposed it directly, it should be Shen Changjun. He always likes to compare with his brother. He dares to ask his father for things that his brother has. How can an orphan in the clan have such confidence? Shen Changfeng didn't know what to say for a moment. After a long time, he asked, so it's not that I have failed to live up to expectations, but that my father is more partial to his illegitimate son. Shen Ling felt as if her brother was about to be broken into pieces. Niu Niu grabbed Shen Changfeng's hand and said, Brother Changfeng, that's it, so your father doesn't like you. It's really not your fault, it's his fault. He is not a good person. Not only did he betray the princess, he's also bullying you, he's evil. The little girl was so angry that she almost jumped up and hit someone. Shen Ling also said, yes, brother, it has never been your fault, it is father who is mentally ill. Shen Changfeng exhaled a long breath, glanced at his sister and Niu Niu, and even comforted others, I'm fine, don't worry about me, don't you want to see the small garden? Let's go now, let's go now. Shen Changfeng pulled his sister and Niu Niu to continue to take a shortcut, but he was distracted and almost hit the wall. The worry in Shen Ling's eyes was about to overflow. Shen Changfeng said casually, I'm fine, sister, why don't you go to see mother, will he do anything to mother now? Come on, let's go to see mother together. Shen Changfeng's incoherent way made Shen Ling even more worried. Don't worry, brother, there are so many people today, and father dare not do anything to mother in public, Shen Ling said. Shen Changfeng looked dazed, yes, you are right, there are many people today. Shen Ling saw that they had already entered the small garden and said, brother, you accompany Niu Niu to visit the garden, I will go to find mother. Shen Changfeng nodded casually. Shen Ling pulled Niu Niu over again and whispered, my dear, you are a sensible and good child. Can you help your sister and look after your brother? After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 262. Niu Niu nodded vigorously, patted her belly and said, Sister Ling, don't worry, Niu Niu will do what she says. Shen Ling looked at her cute little appearance and couldn't help but touch the little girl's hair. Of course, Shen Ling didn't blame everything on Niu Niu, and then found the servants they had left behind and let them stay in the small garden. There is always a call outside, and if there is any movement, rush in and help. The eldest princess was still entertaining the guests, but when she saw her daughter's face was troubled, she still found time to ask, did something happen again? Shen Ling glanced around, and the eldest princess immediately took her daughter to the small room nearby. In a low voice, Shen Ling recounted the ins and outs of the incident, from accidentally eavesdropping on the rockery to his father's return trip to find something, all in detail. Compared with the huge reactions of Shen Changfeng and Shen Ling to this incident, the eldest princess looked normal from beginning to end, and her expression even fluctuated less than the reaction of Rongjia County Lord falling into the water. "I know, I will ask someone to verify it," the eldest princess said calmly. The eldest princess added, "Your father came to see me before, but I just sent him away for any reason." But Shen Ling looked anxious at her mother's unhurried look. "Mom, you must take this matter to heart and beware of father. Don't let him harm you." When the eldest princess heard her daughter's concerned words, she turned her head and looked at Shen Ling, as gentle as a pool of spring water. Then she reached out and patted Shen Ling's shoulder. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. You did the right thing. After all, it concerns the whole house, so there must be no trouble. Your brother is simple-minded and impulsive, so it's best to let him cool down in the small garden." Shen Ling was praised, but there was no joy on her face. Instead, she asked, "Mother, why did father do this? Why is his heart so vicious?" Hearing this, the eldest princess couldn't help but laugh and said, "People's hearts are so far apart from each other. Who knows why he would cause these scandals when he was just living a good life? It's just some nonsense about man's dignity." Shen Ling looked at her mother in confusion. "Don't you find it strange at all? Are you not sad?" The eldest princess said, "What's strange? I thought he was a sensible person, but now it seems he is just a man seeking death." At this time, the eldest princess was even grateful that the prince-in-law had treated her two children poorly for many years. The children did not have a deep relationship with him, so she didn't have to resort to aggressive tactics. A person seeking death? "Mother, are you planning to?" Shen Ling did not dare to ask further. It's one thing what the eldest princess thinks in her heart, but there are some things that are not suitable to be told too directly to her daughter. "Silly boy, what are you thinking about? I'm not the kind of person who kills innocent people indiscriminately. Your father betrayed me and I just separated from him. There is no need to kill everyone. Besides, the matter hasn't been found out yet, so it may not really be you." "Father." Hearing this, Shen Ling lowered his head and said, "Whether it's my father or not, my brother and I are definitely facing our mother." After her daughter left, the eldest princess's eyes instantly turned cold. She called an old nanny in. "Go to the back room and ask Shen Changjun whether he is the illegitimate son of the consort. Be sure to ask clearly before you talk back." The old nanny lowered her head, revealing her calloused hands. "Your Highness, don't worry, I will ask you everything clearly, and I will ensure that it will be done quietly and not disturb the distinguished guests in the house." Once the old nanny took action, she was tortured and interrogated without regard to life or death. The eldest princess nodded and said, "You are fine. I have nothing to worry about anymore." In the small garden, Shen Ling left in a hurry and came back quickly. The moment Shen Changfeng heard the noise, he immediately jumped out like a small animal, grabbed Shen Ling and asked, "Have you told mother? Is she alert? Has father taken action?" Shen Ling: "Brother, don't worry. Mother knows it all. She also said that it may not be the father. We need to check the evidence carefully," Shen Ling said. Shen Changfeng asked, "Who else could he be if he wasn't my father?" Shen Ling naturally couldn't answer. Although her mother said it simply, she already knew in her heart that it was her father. Niu Niu said, "Whether it is your father or not, he keeps comparing you with others and then saying something bad about you. This is wrong. Even if my third brother is not good at studying, my parents will not scold him with others." Shen Changfeng recalled carefully that Gu Zhao was naughty and didn't like to study. Gu Mingda had never said that he wished he didn't have this son, but he always said such heart-wrenching words every now and then. "My third brother and I have a good relationship. Even when I quarrel with him, I will never say I will never play with you again, because I know that if I say this, the third brother will definitely be sad. I will only tell him, I'm so angry with you now that I won't talk to you for a day. The third brother only made me angry for a moment. I will only be angry with him for a moment and don't say anything particularly bad. In this way, we will always be good brothers and sisters. Niu Niu always talks clearly about how to get along with her family. When Shen Changfeng and Shen Ling heard the little girl's words, a guilty look flashed across their faces. The relationship between the two brothers and sisters is indeed very good, but not so good that they would not say harsh words. My dear, you're right. I feel happy for a moment when I say cruel words, but there is always a crack in my heart. People can say so harshly and scold them at every turn. In the final analysis, they don't like it and don't care. Shen Ling's words were not intended to be comforting. Brother, I am still comforting myself. Shen Changfeng took a deep breath and said, if it is really proven that he betrayed my mother, then I will no longer be my father. Shen Ling was relieved to see that her brother had finally thought things through. Let's go back, the banquet is about to begin, Shen Ling urged. Shen Changfeng nodded, turned around and pointed to the potted plant with pink and white flowers on the side and asked, Niu likes this pot of pink orchid, I will take it back later. Niu waved her hands quickly. Shen Changfeng said, why are you being polite to me? I've seen it all, and you keep looking at it secretly. And you said you don't like it? Seeing that she couldn't refuse, Niu could only happily agree and said, Brother Changfeng is the best. The corners of Shen Changfeng's lips curled up. Shen Ling on the side was unhappy and said, I also have pink orchids, and I'll give Xiaobao a pot as well. Let's make a pair. Why doesn't Xiaobao say good things to me? Niu immediately said, Sister Ling is also the best. Shen Ling was satisfied and glanced at her brother provocatively. Shen Changfeng didn't think much and said instead, let's take another route. I don't think I want to take shortcuts for a long time. Just taking a long detour is not enough to make a living. The three of them had not walked long after leaving the small garden, and when they reached a paved path, they suddenly heard the soft cry of a woman. Brother Yuan, you clearly agreed to marry me. Why did mother say that you had already made a marriage contract with Miss Li? When Shen Ling heard this, he knew that an affair between a man and a woman was involved. He quickly grabbed Shen Changfeng and Niu, who were watching the fun, and prepared to pull the big and small ones who loved the fun away. But I didn't expect the female voice to say again, you don't know, the eldest princess looked at me a few times at the banquet today, and my mother intended to marry me to that playboy Shen Changfeng. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 263. Shen Changfeng, who was eating melons with Niu, was stunned when he heard this. Soon he saw Niu beside him, looking up with a surprised look. Niu whispered, is the girl inside really your fiancée? Shen Changfeng is a person who lies in order not to lose face in front of his friends. Doesn't he want face? Hearing this, he shook his head vigorously and whispered, no. I don't have a fiancée. Niu breathed a sigh of relief and said, it's good that she is not your fiancée, don't be angry. Shen Changfeng gradually calmed down under the comfort of the little girl. But the two people who met secretly continued. The male voice said helplessly, the eldest princess is so powerful, Shen Changfeng may not be a bad husband. The female voice cried even harder when she heard this, it is precisely because the eldest princess is so powerful that my mother will not refuse this marriage. What's so good about Shen Changfeng? He is not like you who is both civil and military. He is known as a playboy. Everyone in Beijing knows that I will be finished if I marry him. When Shen Changfeng heard this, he felt that the blood in his body was surging. Is he a very mean person? Why does he act as if he must marry her? Please, I don't know who this person is at all. He wanted to rush in directly, but suddenly saw Niuniu, who was confused on the side. He suddenly calmed down and emphasized again, she is really not my fiancée. If I were to get married, my mother would not have told me. Niuniu nodded hesitantly, and said, then did the sister misunderstand something? Shen Changfeng couldn't explain it clearly. Niu said, it's okay if the sister misunderstood, but she shouldn't say bad things about you. Brother Changfeng is a good person and will be a good husband in the future. Marrying Brother Changfeng is not falling into a fire pit. Shen Changfeng's original depression gradually dissipated under Niu's comfort. Yes, it doesn't matter if the woman inside misunderstood, as long as his future wife knows who he is. Shen Ling on the side was very angry. She didn't want to get involved in these private affairs of men and women. Who knew that they actually slandered Shen Changfeng? Shen Ling wanted to rush in with a quick step. She wanted to see who this pair of dogs and couples were. But as soon as she took a step, she was stopped by Niu. Niu also said to Shen Changfeng, Brother Changfeng, stop Sister Ling quickly. Shen Changfeng immediately reached out and pulled his sister. Why are you stopping me? I want to go in and expose this pair of dogs and couples, Shen Ling asked angrily. Niu said, Sister Ling, my mother said that it's not easy for a girl to be a girl. If there is a little flaw, it will have a huge impact. Don't go. Let Brother Changfeng go. He is a man, and his reputation is not that important. A question mark slowly appeared on Shen Changfeng's head. He suddenly didn't care about the two people inside. He scratched his head and whispered, she is not my fiancée. I don't even know who she is. Forget it. Shen Ling was still angry and said, even if she is not your fiancée, she shouldn't slander you like this. I want to expose them. I want them to. Shen Ling suddenly couldn't say anything. If she really made a big deal about this, what good would it do to her family? She, her brother, and even Niu would all have a reputation for eavesdropping. The girl who was talking inside was charged with the crime of having a secret meeting, and she might even have to die to apologize. Just because of a few words of slander, she had to force a life to death? The mother's banquet had already had the incident of the county lady falling into the water. Now there was a new fun? The more Shen Ling thought about it, the more she calmed down. You are right, there is no need to kill them all. But I am unwilling to let them go just like that. After Shen Ling finished speaking, she picked up a stone on the ground and threw it heavily towards the place where the couple was having a secret meeting. She thought to herself that if they really hit someone, it would be their bad luck. Who is there? Did they steal something? Shen Ling asked loudly. Among the two people who were having a secret meeting inside, the man said ouch, and then there was a rustling sound, and then there was no sound inside. It seems that the person has left. Was he scared away by us? Niu asked in a low voice. Shen Ling wanted to go in and take a look. But Niu held her back again. Shen Changfeng already had experience. I know, I'll go and take a look. The person is gone, only the footprints on the ground. When Shen Changfeng said this, he felt that it was so familiar that it made people sad. Shen Ling came over and looked at the footprints for a few times, with a thoughtful expression. Niu, however, came over, pointed at the mess on the ground, and cheered, great, Sister Ling drove the bad guys away. Shen Ling was not as optimistic as the little girl. She would always feel uncomfortable if she didn't find the person. She looked left and right at the footprints. Quick, look at the traces left here and find out who these two people are. Shen Changfeng said, what are you looking for? If you really want to find them, why did you smash the stone just now? Shen Ling was still unwilling. Niu reminded, Sister Ling, the man was hit. Shen Ling paused after hearing this. There is a word UN in the man's name, and he has an engagement with Miss Li. These are all clues, Niu reminded. Shenling didn't think much about it before, but now that she thought about it carefully, she suddenly realized. Kui Yuan, the eldest son of the Jing'an Marquis mansion, he and Sister Li got engaged last month. This man is fickle and is definitely not a good match. Should I tell Sister Li his true face? Shenling asked. Niu didn't think much when she heard this, but clapped her hands and said, "Of course we have to tell her. Great, we have done a good thing again." Shen Changfeng said, "You have to tell her in private, or she will be embarrassed." Shenling nodded, "Of course, I'm not such a reckless person." Shen Changfeng felt a little guilty. He had done such reckless things before, but he was more careful after being reminded by Gu Mingde. But Shenling thought more, if I tell her, will she think I am provoking her and get angry? Niu tilted her head and asked, "Sister Ling, why do you think so? Isn't it good to avoid being entrusted with the wrong person?" Shenling said, "People treat men and women differently. If a man makes such a fuss before marriage, it is just a romantic thing. If a woman breaks off the engagement because of this, she may get a reputation of being picky and nosy. Besides, the Li family has strict family education and may not agree to break off the engagement." Niu asked, "Sister Ling, if your future, do you want to know that your fiancé did such a thing? Even if you know, you can't cancel the engagement." Shenling said immediately, "Of course I want to know. Even if I can't cancel the engagement, I want to see his character as soon as possible." Niu said, "That's right." Shenling said, "Sister Li's temperament may not be the same as mine." Niu said, "If Sister Li is the same as Sister Ling, it means that she is clear-headed and is a person who can be befriended. If she vents her anger on Sister Ling, doesn't it mean that she is confused? My mother said that confused people cannot be saved and are destined to suffer." After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 264. Shenling nodded vigorously, "Niu, you are right. It's not unusual for stupid people to do anything. I just need to do my best and obey fate. If she is angry with me because of her fiancé, it only means that she is a person who should not be deeply friends with." After Shenling thought it through, the three of them continued walking back. This time the journey was smooth, with men and women still sitting separately. Niu was sent to Zhang Yuniang by Shenling. Zhang Yuniang hadn't seen her daughter for most of the day, and she was always worried. Although she knew she was at the eldest princess's mansion, she was still afraid that someone would bully her child. "Are you having fun with your sister Ling?" Zhang Yuniang asked with a smile. Niu raised her little face and said with a smile, "Sister Ling and I have done a lot of good things together. We are very busy." "Wow, what did Niu do? Tell me quickly," Lu Xiru asked from the side. Niu shook her head and said, "Sister Ling told me not to say anything." After hearing this, Lu Xiru didn't ask any questions, but said, "Niu is really a good child who keeps her promises." Niu proudly puffed out her belly. Lu Xiru looked at her cute appearance and couldn't help but stretched out her hand to pat her belly and said, "Oh, it's so empty. Is our little hero hungry because he has done good things?" Niu felt really hungry after being reminded by her. Zhang Yuniang gave her a few dishes and asked her to eat slowly. There were other women with children on the table, but the little girl sitting opposite Niu looked about the same age as Niu, and she still had to be fed by the maid. The little girl looked at Niu eating by herself. She was stunned for a moment, seemed a little embarrassed, and said, "Mom, I also want to eat by myself." The noble lady whom she called mother also saw Niu across from her, frowned, and said in a low voice, "What do you want to learn from a small family? It's not like our family can't afford a maid." The child didn't understand such words of flattery and contempt. She just wanted to play, but she started making trouble, Why don't you let me learn from her? I want to play, I want to play. The noble lady originally laughed at the Gu family for being shabby, but now her own daughter had embarrassed her, and her face suddenly turned dark. After finally giving the chopsticks to her daughter to eat, her daughter was used to being fed, so she was not very good at holding the chopsticks. Instead, she made a mess with the bowl. The lady's blood pressure instantly rose. The Lu family's little girl is almost 7 years old. Why can't she even hold chopsticks well? This Lu family's daughter is really... Some people at the table could not help but murmur. Ms. Lu was so angry that her whole body was shaking. In order not to affect her daughter's future marriage, she hurriedly asked the maid to take her daughter away. Miss is not hungry yet. Send her out for a walk and then come back. Although the naughty kid was not happy, Ms. Liu's face turned dark and she was forcefully taken away by the maid. The dinner finally became quiet. Lu Xiara quietly approached Zhang Yuniang and whispered, "Sister, our Niuniu is the most obedient and best." Zhang Yuniang lowered her head and glanced at Niu. The little girl was now holding a bowl and eating honestly. When she saw something she wanted to eat, she would ask Zhang Yuniang for it without any intention of making a fuss. "Mom, that flour-like dish is particularly delicious. You must try it," Niu suggested to Zhang Yuniang in a low voice. Zhang Yuniang's heart suddenly melted when she saw that her daughter was still thinking about her, looking so endearing. Having used the banquet actually means that today's flower viewing party is coming to an end. The eldest princess's plan to organize the flower viewing banquet was originally intended for the young men and women to see each other. After careful analysis today, it seems that the only good things that have been achieved are the two couples who fell into the water. Not many guests stayed after the luncheon. The Gu family also stood up and left. Shen Ling held Niu's hand and whispered, "I'll go and play with you in a few days, okay?" Niu said, "Sister Ling has to decide in advance the day when she will come. I've been a little busy recently." Shen Ling was confused. "Don't you stay at home all day? Isn't your father at home watching your homework?" Niu shook her head, counted on her fingers and showed it to Shen Ling, and said, "Tomorrow is a holiday, I'm going to go to Daddy's son's house to play. The day after tomorrow my grandma and I will go to work. The day after tomorrow, my dad will release the results, and I will also go and see." "Work? What work?" Shen Ling was curious. Niu said, "My grandma helps Li Yaran, and she will go to help him sell his house tomorrow." Shen Ling had never seen anything like this before and immediately said, "Can I go? I'm curious." Niu didn't feel that what her grandma did was inferior at all, and said, "I haven't actually seen it before. This is the first time my grandma has gone out to work. I can't promise you for my grandma. I have to ask her." Shen Ling liked Niu and thought the little girl was interesting, so he said, "Then don't forget to ask her. What you do together will be fun, don't forget it, you know." Niu patted her belly and said, "Don't worry, I have the best memory." Not long after the Gu family left, Shen Ling sent someone to ask if the Li family had left. She also sent someone to inquire during the previous dinner. Kui Yuan left in a hurry before the banquet started, saying that he accidentally fell and had a bruise on his head. "It was a small wound, so I went back to see a doctor." With this clue as evidence, Shen Ling was able to confirm that the man in the private meeting was indeed Kui Yuan. Li Shiyun is 15 years old this year. Although she has a grandfather who has joined the cabinet, the Li family is now only supported by her grandfather in the court. Although there are people in Li's father's generation who are officials in the court, they are not particularly successful, which seems to be a sign of being idle. Jing and Bo Mansion had previously offended the emperor, and the emperor had ignored the offer to grant him the title of crown prince. Now that he was getting married to the Li family, he hoped to use Mr. Li Ji's influence to successfully grant the title of crown prince to Kui Yuan. "Thank you, sister, for reminding me. I made a mental note. Li Shiyun stood up and gave a solemn salute to Shen Ling. Shen Ling hurriedly helped the person up and asked, "Sister Li, just don't blame me for talking too much." Li Shiyun shook her head and said, "Originally, my family said that the eldest son of the Kui family has a good character and the style of his ancestors, but I know in my heart that the purpose of marrying the Jing and Bo mansion to my family is to invite the crown prince. Since sister knows, why does your family still agree to this marriage?" Shen Ling was puzzled. Li Shiyun sighed softly and said, "Everyone in the world is bustling for profit, and the world is bustling for profit. Everyone has their own plans. This is human nature. My family's marriage proposal was just because of the title of Prince Jing and Mansion." Although Shen Ling and Li Shiyun were familiar with each other before, they had never been close to each other. Now seeing Li Shiyun's thoughtfulness, she couldn't help but feel good about her. "Now that my sister knows about it, will this marriage continue?" Li Shiyun looked embarrassed and said, "Of course I don't want to. I can accept that he has an agenda, but I cannot tolerate that he first communicates with other girls in private, and then betrays his trust for his own selfish purposes. This is definitely not a good person. It's just a matter of family matters. In the final analysis, my grandfather still has the final say." Obviously, Li Shiyun did not think that the elders in the family would regret their marriage because of this trivial matter. After all, once the engagement was broken off, it might affect the marriages of other girls in the Li family. After the guests had dispersed, Shen Changfeng went directly to the eldest princess. "Mom, I don't want a fiancé now, so don't mess around with me." When the eldest princess heard this, she was stunned for a moment, and then, as if she suddenly thought of something, she clapped her hands hard and asked, "Do you have a sweetheart?" The bustle of the world is all for profit, the hustle and bustle of the world is for profit from historical records. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 265. When Shen Changfeng heard this, he felt puzzled. "Mother, what are you thinking about?" After hearing Shen Changfeng's answer, the eldest princess' face was visibly disappointed. "Why don't you have a girl you like? Haven't you figured it out yet? There are so many beautiful girls in your room, but you don't like any of them." When the eldest princess said this, her expression suddenly changed again. Shen Changfeng said doubtfully, "I haven't married yet, why should I care about the beautiful girls in the room?" The eldest princess' eyes were full of doubt, and then she suddenly reached out and patted her son's face. "Tell me the truth, are you a homosexual?" When Shen Changfeng heard this, he immediately coughed loudly. "Mother, what are you talking about? How can you slander your own son like this?" The princess saw that the grievance on Shen Changfeng's face was not a disguise, and she was reluctant to let go, but still said, "In the past, you were always playing with cats and dogs outside, and you didn't offend anyone." Shen Changfeng tilted his head, his face full of memories, and then said, "I did beat a few young masters, but after a long time, their families didn't pursue it." "Mother, you are not going to pursue it for them, right? I am your own son, and I beat people to enforce justice." The princess didn't care about the disputes between these children. Her thoughts were obviously different from her son's. When she thought about it carefully, it seemed that they just said that Shen Changfeng was a playboy, but no one associated the word romantic with the son in front of her with clear eyes and stupidity. The princess thought about it and felt that the only explanation was that her son hadn't opened his mind yet. The eldest princess is different from ordinary women in the harem. She doesn't have the energy to keep watching her son's backyard. Besides, if her son doesn't get it, she still feels like a child. She actually enjoys her son's attachment to his mother. "There are so many noble ladies coming to our house today. Don't you like any of them? Even if they are of lower birth, as long as they have good character, you can like them," said the eldest princess. Shen Changfeng got excited when he talked about this, I don't like anyone, but I really don't like anyone. Don't match them up randomly. The eldest princess noticed that there was a story, so she pretended to listen attentively. After listening to the whole story, the eldest princess slapped the table hard. What a big face. When Shen Changfeng thought of the woman who belittled him without meeting him, he couldn't help feeling wronged and asked his mother, "Which noble lady did you like?" The eldest princess' eyes evaded. Shen Changfeng stared at her. "You have to tell me the truth." The princess smiled awkwardly. "It's just 2 or 3 girls." Shen Changfeng suddenly became alert and asked, "Is it 2 or 3 families? Which 2 or 3 families are they?" The princess was so angry that she simply broke the jar and said, "I have hinted to any decent family as long as their daughter has not settled down." Shen Changfeng. Shen Changfeng couldn't help but said, "Are you so afraid that I can't get married? Anyway, I will definitely not get married this year." "You are not afraid of marrying a daughter-in-law who has someone else in mind, but I want someone who is devoted to me and only sees me." The princess was helpless and said, Okay, I know it now. Your marriage will wait for a while and talk about it in 2 years. Shen Changfeng was relieved. When Niuniu returned home, she rushed to her grandmother as soon as possible. "Oh, my dear, you went out to play all day today. Do you miss grandma?" asked Mrsku with a smile. Niu nodded vigorously, but still said honestly, "I miss grandma and I have something to ask grandma." Grandma Gu immediately said, "What's the matter? Do you want to eat ginger cakes? Grandma will make it for you tomorrow morning." Niu shook her head and asked, "Grandma, the day after tomorrow you go to help Li Yaran, can you take Sister Ling with you?" Grandma Gu was stunned for a moment, then she remembered who the sister Niu was talking about, and she was so anxious that she almost jumped up. "Have you promised her?" "Not yet, I said I want to ask your opinion," Niu said obediently. Grandma Gu was immediately in a dilemma. She is the daughter of the eldest princess, precious and valuable, how can she follow me? If something goes wrong, our whole family will not be able to pay for it. Listening to Grandma Gu's complaints, Niu said, "Grandma, then I will send a message to Sister Ling, saying that she can't be taken with her, don't worry." Grandma Gu was even more anxious when she heard this. If she just asked someone to pass on the message, wouldn't people know immediately that it was she, the old lady, who was unhappy? Old Lady Gu didn't want to offend Shen Ling. In addition to Shen Ling's noble status, she also sincerely treated Niuniu as her sister, and Old Lady Gu didn't want to hurt Shen Ling's heart. "Oh, this won't work, that won't work, what can I do?" Old Lady Gu was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot, turning around in the room. Gu Mingda said casually, "Since Miss Shen wants to go, you can take her there. The capital is under the feet of the emperor. What big things can happen? There are many people serving Miss Shen, who will definitely protect her. I will give Changfeng a holiday the day after tomorrow, and let him accompany you." Old Lady Gu always listened to Gu Mingda's words. Seeing that her son agreed, she could only say, then I promise." Gu Mingda said, "The little girl is just in a momentary mood. She is satisfied after playing once, and there should be nothing wrong." Old Lady Gu nodded hesitantly, "I hope so. It's just that the old lady couldn't completely let go. She couldn't help but pull her son and mutter, 'Why do you have to follow me to the market if you are fine?' The eldest princess actually agrees to a place like that. It's dirty, isn't it? Will it scare the little girl?" Gu Mingda comforted him, "The eldest princess has many things to do. Since she agreed, she must have concerns about the mess. If the little girl is scared when she sees it, she may not make a fuss about getting together in the future." Gu Mingda speculated on the eldest princess in this way, and the eldest princess also speculated on Gu Mingda with the same idea. She found her daughter's request unbelievable. She grabbed Shen Ling and asked, "Did the Gu family really agree?" Did you ask clearly? Shenling thought that Niuniu could also represent the Gu family, and without any guilt in her eyes, she said decisively, "Of course. Mother, who do you think I am? Do I use my status to oppress others? I must have asked for their consent, I just came to tell you. The Gu family specially sent someone to deliver a message to me, saying that they can let me go with them to see the people in the market and gain insights." The eldest princess did not completely listen to Shenling's words, but sent someone to ask questions at the concierge. Because Niu took Shenling's matter to heart, she asked about it right after returning from the flower viewing party, and sent someone to reply to Shenling in the shortest possible time. The eldest princess found out clearly once she checked. Shenling said, "Mother sent someone to ask, should you believe me?" The eldest princess looked thoughtful. Shenling gave Shen Changfeng another look. Shen Changfeng knew that his sister was bored at home, so he helped beat the drum and said, "Mom, Mr. Gu is not invincible." He actually agreed. Apparently he also thinks this is good for my sister. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 266. The princess looked at her daughter's expectant expression and nodded, "Since Mr. Gu doesn't mind the trouble, I won't be the bad guy either. I just need to put safety first. Remember?" Shenling cheered on the spot. She could finally do interesting things like her brother. The Gu family is easy to talk to. Don't say that the eldest lady has a bad temper and delay their work, okay, the princess reminded again. Shenling said, "Don't worry, I'm not the kind of ignorant person." Niuniu also invited me to her house for breakfast, saying that she had made fresh dishes and must let me taste them. When the princess heard this, she immediately recalled the meal at the Gu family. The chef's heat was not perfect, but the dishes were really novel. Later, she asked the chef of the princess's house to make similar dishes, but she felt that they were not as authentic as the chef of the Gu family. "Please ask for me later to see if the chef of the Gu family is willing to come to the princess's house, or if he can accept an apprentice or something like that," the princess said. Shenling also had this idea, but Niu rejected it several times, saying, "It won't work. Gu's cook seems to have some unspeakable secrets and won't see outsiders." Although the princess felt it was a pity, she didn't mean to poach the cook. She gave up when she heard it wouldn't work. In this way, Gu Mingda thought the princess agreed, and the princess thought it was Gu Mingda's suggestion, so the matter was done. They didn't know that from beginning to end, it was just Shenling's private request to Niu. In a blink of an eye, it was the day when Mrs. Gu went out to work. The old lady had never felt that the burden on her was so heavy. The night before she left, she lay on the bed and turned around like a pancake. The old lady forced Father Gu to hold the quilt and go into Gu Yan's room to make do for the night. Shenling came very early. The crazy girl also attached great importance to Niu's affairs. When she heard Niu said that a friend came to have breakfast, she immediately used all her skills. In this way, Shenling had a rich and appetizing breakfast at Gu's house. When they were about to leave, Shenling pulled Niu and asked, "Is the place we are going too far? Can we come back before lunch?" Shenling wanted to have another lunch at Gu's house. Niu shook her head and said, "The place we are going to is close to Xianyu Tower, and we will have lunch there at noon." Shenling said, Xianyu Tower has a great reputation in Beijing recently. I heard that there is a courtyard there that only welcomes female guests. I have always wanted to go and see it, but I have no time. Today is a coincidence. However, I heard that it is difficult to book a private room there, and the queue has to be several days. Niu nodded and said, "The owner of Xianyu Tower is Aunt Liu's fiancé. If you want to book a private room next time, just let me know. Shenling naturally knew that as long as she brought up the name of the princess's mansion, these restaurants would not dare to neglect her, but relying on her mother's power and her friend's face, it was obviously different. That's great. I will definitely help take care of the business. Shenling made special preparations for today. She wore what she thought was a very simple dress, but before leaving, Zhang Yuniang tactfully persuaded her to change her clothes. Although Shenling was only 14 years old, she was about the same height as Zhang Yuniang. Zhang Yuniang took a set of clothes she had not worn yet and gave it to Shenling. Zhang Yuniang was prepared for Shenling to be unhappy, but she didn't expect Shenling's reaction to be different from that of ordinary people. Although the color of this fabric is not good looking, it feels very soft when worn on the body. What Shenling praised so much was not some brocade clothes, but the most ordinary fine cotton clothes. Shenling was obviously not worldly. She even asked Niuniu, "Do ordinary people wear this kind of clothes?" Niuniu was young, but she had experienced hard times. She shook her head and said, "When life was hard at home, I couldn't even wear coarse cloth clothes. Now that my family is not short of money, I can afford to wear such fine cotton cloth." Shenling asked, "What does coarse cloth clothes look like?" Old Lady Gu immediately waved her hand, and Madame Qi came over. Shenling touched Madame Qi's clothes, which were so hard that they pricked her hand. "How can you wear such uncomfortable clothes?" "How uncomfortable?" Shenling couldn't help but sighed. Others couldn't help laughing when they heard these naive words. "Miss Shen, for ordinary people, it is already very decent to have a set of unpatched coarse cloth clothes." "How dare you ask for more?" Zhang Yuniang said. Shenling suddenly thought of what Niu Niu had just said, and asked again, "You said before that it was not your turn to wear coarse cloth clothes, so what did you wear?" "Wear rags and patched clothes," Niu Niu said in a matter-of-fact tone. Shenling did not dare to imagine what kind of life that was. She wanted to continue asking, but Shen Changfeng pulled his sister aside and lowered his voice to tell Niu Niu's original origin. It was the first time that Shenling knew that Niu Niu was not Gu's biological child, but an adopted girl. She looked at Niu Niu with a little more heartache. But Niu Niu never felt that her life was miserable, and smiled and said to Shenling, "Sister Ling, you don't have to look at me like this. Niu Niu is not a pitiful child, Niu Niu is the most favorite child in the family." Shenling paused after hearing this. Those details that she had noticed before but didn't think about in detail came to her mind again. Old Lady Gu's eyes have been on Niu Niu. Shenling only thought that this old lady was not like other old people who favored boys over girls. Now that he heard Niu Niu say this, Shenling was sure that the Gu family really spoiled Niu Niu as their own child. Gu Mingda was not like an ordinary father who didn't care about his daughter's education. Instead, he had a serious plan, fearing that his daughter would go astray. Shenling looked at Niu Niu's innocent and romantic look, and couldn't help but think of the mess in his family. He couldn't help thinking that his life might not be as happy as Niu Niu's. Li Yaran and Old Lady Gu made an appointment at Hongyi Lane. He only knew that Old Lady Gu was going to bring her younger generation over. When he really saw Shenling and Shen Changfeng, he didn't think much about it. He just sighed in his heart that the brother and sister were really good looking, with delicate skin and tender flesh, and didn't look like they were from a small family. "Old lady, the house we are selling this time is a 2-story house. We already have a buyer, but this buyer is different from ordinary people. It's not easy to talk to her. Please coax her." Li Yaran said so. Old Lady Gu didn't think much about it and nodded casually. But when she really met the person, Old Lady Gu realized how troublesome it was. "My husband likes quietness. The neighbors have too many children, and the tree in front blocks the light. You go and ask the neighbors to restrain their children and have them cut down the tree on the corner, and I will buy this house." After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shenshen. Chapter 267. In front of everyone is a young woman who looks to be 17 or 18 years old with her hair in a woman's bun. The woman looked arrogant and acted like she was giving advice. Her condescending attitude made everyone feel uncomfortable. Li Yaran wanted to make money, but had no way to get involved with this woman, so he could only place his hope in Mrsku, who had rich life experience. Mrsku first asked Li Yaran, "What will you do if this business fails?" When Li Yaran heard this, he shook his head helplessly and said, "If you can't do it, forget it. This Madam Chen has money, but she is really difficult to deal with. I don't know who can do it for her business." Mrsku nodded and asked, "If I make this order, how much can you give me?" It was only when Li Yaran felt that it couldn't be solved that he asked the old lady to come over to help. Naturally, he took the money one by one. Li Yaran quietly drew a number for Mrsku. Mrsku was confident. Li Yaran only saw Mrsku cough slightly, and then walked to the young woman's side with her neck raised slightly. Before Mrsku opened her mouth, Ms Chen saw someone coming and immediately shouted, "I have made so many requests to you, do you take it to heart? If you really don't want to do business, why let me waste my words?" Seeing that she had taken the lead, Mrsku was not frightened and said instead, "Ms Chen, since you are dissatisfied with this house, forget it. We will come back to you when there is a good one elsewhere." After Mrsku said this, she turned around and left. Ms Chen became anxious. "Old lady, aren't you a fan? Why are you running away? We haven't discussed this house yet." Mrsku turned around and said, "I am not a yaman. You will only come to me when the yaman can't solve the problem. I can't do anything about the things you said now, so let's talk about it next time." Mrsku even wanted to take Li Yaran away. Ms Chen was immediately anxious. She bought a house, and almost all the people in the capital came to accompany her. Most people ran away several times and said, "Look for her if you find a good house," but in fact, these people never talked to her again. Young and tender-faced Li Yaran were not originally considered by Ms Chen. It was only when there was no one left that she would seek medical treatment in a hurry. Now that this last life-saving straw has to be thrown away, how can Madam Chen not be anxious? Ms Chen was quite sullen at this time, and said to Mrsku, "Old lady, if you say so, I'm going to find someone else." Mrsku nodded and said, "This kind of thing is a matter of mutual consent. Madam Chen, you don't even need to say this. Li Yaran and I can understand your mood." Ms Chen originally thought that Mrsku would be anxious, but she didn't expect such an attitude. At this time, she couldn't help but feel anxious. She had delayed buying a house for too long and had been living in a rented house, never feeling at ease. If she still can't buy a house, I'm afraid her husband will blame her. After all, Madam Chen lowered her head, pulled Mrsku and said, "Old lady, don't wait until later. Let's discuss it carefully today, okay?" Mrsku still looked careless and said casually, "Ms Chen, let's start with the ugly words. Doing business is like doing business. If you really don't want to do business, don't make any embarrassing demands." When Ms Chen heard this, she hurriedly said, "I'm not embarrassing anyone. My husband-in-law is a scholar, so he has higher requirements for accommodation." Mrsku glanced at her and said, "If you really want the neighbors' children to stop making noise and the big trees in the alley not to block the light, just buy the entire house in the alley so that no one dares to block it. Your light, quarrel with your husband." Ms Chen was so embarrassed by Mrsku that she felt extremely embarrassed. But the more fierce Mrsku was, the more she coaxed her. "Old lady, you should also think about me." Mrsku directly interrupted her and said, "As the saying goes, the buyer is the one who picks the goods. I know you are interested in this house. If you tell me nicely, I can help you negotiate the price with the landlord. If it happens again, if you find these faults, let's not talk about them today. Mrs. Chen didn't expect Mrs. Gu to see it so clearly and said, although I like this house, it doesn't mean that I'm not picky, so the problems with this house won't exist. Is it the problem of the house that you can't buy a house that fully meets your wishes? It's obviously your problem. If you had a lot of money, would you still consider this house? Mrs. Gu asked. Madame Chen was immediately speechless. Mrs. Gu continued, if you don't like the noise, you can ask your husband to put some paper balls in his ears. The light is not good in this corner of the yard, then you can change to another corner. There will always be an area that is not covered. Mrs. Gu spoke quickly, and for a moment, Mrs. Chen was really frightened. Okay, I'll buy it. I just need to trouble the old lady to help me negotiate the price again. Mrs. Gu nodded and agreed. Mrs. Gu followed Li Yaran to see the landlord again. Big brother, we also want to sell your house at a good price. However, there are many children in the neighbors' homes, which are noisy and annoying. There is a big tree at the entrance of the alley, which completely blocks the sunlight in the yard in winter. Li, I don't know how many buyers I have found for you, but despite all my efforts, the business has not been completed. You are in a hurry to go back to your hometown again. I advise you to lower the price again so that you won't lose your money. Don't you think so? When old lady Gu said this, Shen Ling and Shen Changfeng were all dumbfounded. This old lady looked ordinary, but she was so eloquent. The same problem could be said in two different ways. The owner was really anxious to sell the house, and old lady Gu coaxed the owner to lower the price with just a few words. When she returned to the house and saw Chen Niangzi, old lady Gu took the credit for herself. Mrs. Chen, you don't know, I talked my mouth dry, and finally helped you to lower the price. When Chen Niangzi learned that the price had been reduced again, her face was full of joy, and she thanked old lady Gu profusely. On the same day, Li Yaren helped to transfer the house, and Chen Niangzi got a brand new house deed, and old lady Gu also had an extra tael of silver in her pocket. Grandma Gu, you are so amazing. That Chen lady seemed difficult to deal with at first. She was arrogant in front of Li Ya people, but she was like a little lamb in front of you, Shen Ling praised. Grandma Gu waved her hand and said, this kind of person is a bully and afraid of the strong. It is the easiest to deal with. When I saw her and saw her mouth full of blisters, I knew that she was picky on the surface, but in fact she was more anxious than anyone else. So I lied and made her surrender. When facing such picky people, you have to deal with them like this. You can't be too good-tempered. Grandma Gu imparted her experience in a logical way. Shen Ling's eyes lit up when she heard it. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 268. At noon, the group had lunch at Xianyu Tower. Shen Ling rarely ate out, and almost every dish in Xianyu Tower had its own characteristics. When she walked out of Xianyu Tower, she felt her stomach bulging. Miss Shen, if you feel tired, you can go back and rest in the afternoon. I have to meet another guest. Mrs. Gu was afraid of tiring Shen Ling. Shen Ling usually took a nap after lunch, but he gained some experience in the morning. He saw that Mrs. Gu was busy again in the afternoon, and Niu Niu beside her had her eyes wide open, and she didn't feel tired at all. Even if Shen Ling was a little sleepy, she felt that she couldn't be compared to a 6-year-old child. I'm not tired. Grandma Gu, I still want to go with you, Shen Ling said. Mrs. Gu hesitated and said, I see you yawned several times. Niu Niu also said, Sister Ling, if you are sleepy, go back and rest quickly. Don't hold on, it is not good for your health. Shen Ling gave Shen Changfeng a look. Shen Changfeng was actually sleepy, but he didn't want to go back like this. He was afraid of missing something interesting, so he said, "Grandma Gu, don't worry, my sister is not sleeping. She rarely comes out to play, so she went back like this. I'm afraid she won't be reconciled." In fact, Mrs. Gu also likes the Shen brothers and sisters. They are all from high backgrounds, but they are both good children who are sensible and polite. Last night, Mrs. Gu was so worried that she didn't sleep well all night. She only found out after meeting her today. All my thoughts are redundant. After all, Mrs. Gu couldn't bear to refuse the two children. After meeting Li Yaran in front of another house, Li Yaran talked about the situation of this house in the afternoon. The person who came to buy a house was a young man, and the price was very generous. There should have been no problems originally, but he kept wearing a mask, he was too tall, and he had an evil aura about him. I always felt unhappy. Be practical, you have a lot of experience, please give me a hand and see if there is anything wrong with it, Li Yaran said. It's no wonder that Li Ya people have such worries. This kind of hidden person is always easily associated with wanted criminals and the like. But when Mrs. Gu saw the young master, she immediately screamed, "Brother Xie, why do you want to buy a house?" When Niu Niu saw Xie Xin Chuan, she immediately rushed over, "Brother Xie, I haven't seen you for a long time. Niu Niu misses you so much." Xie Xin Chuan hurriedly hugged Niu Niu. He was also surprised to see the Gu family, but he has never been a person who likes to laugh and talk. Even if he holds the delicate and soft little girl in his arms, he still bites his lower lip desperately. Just stopped the corners of his mouth that wanted to raise. "Brother Xie, you were picked up by your family as soon as you got off the boat. I also wanted to ask where you live and go visit you to play, but you didn't even leave me an address," Niu Niu complained. Xie Xin Chuan ignored the others, but when facing Niu Niu he was always afraid of scaring her, so he could only say, "I'm sorry, I didn't know you wanted my address." Niu Niu said, "Brother Xie, of course I want your address. You are my father's savior and my very favorite big brother. Niu Niu also wants to go and play with you." Xie Xin Chuan thought about what happened after he returned to Beijing. When he was at home, he also thought about Niu Niu and the Gu family whose family was too harmonious. But what he thought more about was that he was just a companion on the ship for a while. With so many people doting on Niu Niu, would Niu Niu really think of him? Will the Gu family care about their whereabouts? On the other hand, Mrs. Gu said doubtfully, "Brother Xie, the old lady vaguely remembered that your home is in the capital. Why, you don't live at home now and you want to move out?" Xie Xin Chuan hesitated for a moment, but finally shook his head and opened his mouth, not knowing how to explain. Seeing him like this, Mrs. Gu sighed and said, "My second son told me that you don't like to talk. If you don't want to talk, don't talk." Mrs. Gu's respectful and considerate attitude actually made Xie Xin Chuan feel guilty in his heart. He did save Gu Mingda, but during those days on the ship, the Gu family also tried their best to take care of him. That kind of caring care was not pretended. Xie Xin Chuan could naturally feel the sincerity of the Gu family. Mrs. Gu continued, "Since it's Brother Xie and you want to buy this house, I will definitely help you negotiate the price." Li Yaran didn't expect that the two groups actually knew each other. "Li Yaran, don't worry. Brother Xie is General Xie's only son. The injury on his face has been there for a long time. He is only 12 years old. He is not a person of unknown origin." Mrs. Gu also asked Li Yaran to relax. When Li Yaran heard 12 years old, his reaction was similar to that of others. He couldn't help but secretly look at the tall and powerful Xie Xin Chuan. 12 years old is a head taller than me, and this food is so good. Li Yaran sighed with emotion in a low voice. But he was also sincere. After confirming that Xie Xin Chuan was fine, he still took the initiative to say, "Don't worry, old lady, although you know each other, as long as this business is completed, the money I should give you will definitely not be less. Mrsku didn't want to make this money, so she pulled Li Yaran aside and whispered, I won't take this money. Please use the money to buy some useful things for Brother Xie, and don't mention me. Just is it okay to say that the landlord doesn't want it? Li Yaran was looking forward to a long-term cooperation with Mrsku, so when he heard this, he naturally would not refuse. Xie Chuan also didn't expect that as soon as he entered and exited, the house price dropped by 30 taels of silver. Such a big fluctuation frightened this quiet little mute, and he couldn't help asking, Grandma Gu, why is it so much cheaper suddenly? Is it because you helped bargain? Grandma Gu nodded, picked up the water bag on her waist and took a sip. She suddenly stopped drinking water and stared at Xie Chuan with wide eyes. Xie, you didn't even plan to bargain. Xie Chuan's body froze immediately. Grandma Gu thought that this child didn't even like to talk, and others wanted to do whatever they wanted, so she slapped her thigh. You kid, with such a temper, I don't know how much you will suffer. Nayuniu also pulled Xie Chuan and said, Brother Xie, seeing you suffer, Grandma is more uncomfortable than you. Xie Chuan believed what Nayuniu said, because Grandma Gu's face was so ugly now, as if she had been cheated of hundreds of taels of silver. Old Lady Gu hammered her chest hard, but couldn't help complaining, you are still too young, you don't know the benefits of bargaining. Nayuniu nodded vigorously, looking very agreeable. Xie Chuan looked at the old man and the young man, and couldn't help feeling uneasy. Did he really do something too much? Shen Ling and Shen Changfeng, who were standing by, also looked like they had been shot in the knees. It seemed that they didn't have the habit of bargaining. Of course, with the princess mother, they never lacked money. But watching old Lady Gu bargaining, the Shen brothers and sisters felt very impressive. Old Lady Gu made a big decision on the spot, and said with a proud face, Xie, what else do you want to buy here? I'll buy it for you. I guarantee that you can buy the best things at the lowest price. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 269. Xie Chuan was still a little stunned when he heard this. Mrsku was still mumbling, you kid, you are just tall but not smart. Although I don't know why you want to buy a house and move out, but the most important thing in life is money. You never know when you will need money for emergency. If you can save a little bit, it's a little bit. Xie Chuan has always been taciturn. He should have been tired of these narrations, but at this moment, he only felt that it was not harsh at all. Okay, Xie Chuan said suddenly. This time it was Mrsku's turn to be stunned. After the old lady came to her senses, she said, Brother Xie, just don't think I'm nosy. You should save some money when you are living outside. Li Yaran took Xie Chuan to transfer the property, while Mrsku took a string of little tails and went to the nearest street to buy things. A quilt is so expensive? Are you trying to steal money? For 2 cents of silver, forget it if you don't sell it. I'll go to another place, Mrsku said confidently. When the shop owner heard this, he immediately shouted, Old lady, you are really killing me. The purchase price of this quilt is more than 2 coins. Where can I sell it to you? Mrsku looked at him sideways and said, do you think I have never sewn a quilt? If others don't know the price of this thing, how can I not know it? For 2 cents of silver, if you can sell it, just sell it. If you can't, forget it. Let's go somewhere else. Mrsku left immediately without any hesitation. No. The shop owner hurriedly stopped the person and said with a grimace, Old lady, Let's discuss it later. Mrsku rolled her eyes and landed on a bamboo basket nearby. Okay, for 2 coins, I can buy this quilt, and you can give me a bamboo basket as an extra, Mrsku said. The shop owner said, Old lady, why are you keeping the price lower and lower? Isn't this embarrassing? Mrsku looked at him and said with a half smile, if this business really couldn't be done, you wouldn't have held me back for so long. The owner of the shop saw through his mind and had no choice but to deal with old Mrsku. After all, he still wanted to do this business. He said on the spot, okay, old lady, 2 coins, you can take the things and leave quickly. I'm scared of you. Mrsku took the things and drew another pie. Boss, you are an honest person. Don't worry, I will help you introduce more businesses later. I tell you the truth, I am helping Yeren sell his house. From now on, this area will be around when a house is sold. I tell them that your stuff is affordable. When the shop owner heard this, he immediately beamed and said, that's a good relationship. I'm counting on you to enjoy the meal. After leaving the shop, Shen Ling immediately asked, Grandma Gu, what else do you want to buy? I'm here to help negotiate prices. I've already learned how to do it. The Shen brothers and sisters, who had just watched Mrsku bargaining at close range, felt that they were terrifyingly strong. Mrsku hesitated for a moment, and seeing that the 2 children looked eager to give it a try, she finally nodded in agreement. Let's go, Nayuniu, look at how your senior brother and I kill everyone. Shen Lingzi was very proud. Shen Changfeng also held his head high, holding Niu Niu with one hand, and swaggering with the other hand to look powerful. How much does this iron pot cost? Shen Changfeng asked. 4 cents of silver, said the iron pot seller without raising his head. Shen Changfeng and Shen Ling looked at each other. According to the bargaining rules they had just learned, Shen Changfeng cut the price in half, sell it to us for 2 cents of silver. Shen Ling also said, yes, you will also give us a spatula. When the iron shop owner heard this, he finally raised his head and glanced at the Shen brothers and sisters. Then he slapped the things in his hands on the chopping board and said loudly, where did these 2 idiots come from to make trouble? Go, don't buy anything, get out. Shen Ling and Shen Changfeng were driven out by the iron shop owner with a broom. Niu Niu went in with them. When she saw this situation, she immediately said obediently, Uncle Boss, I will go out by myself. The owner of the iron shop saw that Niu Niu was cute, but he didn't want to be cruel to her. He just forced out a fierce smile and said, little baby, your brothers and sisters have no brains. You must not imitate them. Niu Niu walked out one step behind and saw the Shen brothers and sisters standing on the street corner with their heads lowered and puzzled expressions on their faces. It's obviously the same thing, why did he hit someone? Yes, why are you bullying us so much? Is it because we don't have wrinkles on our faces? The 2 unworldly young masters and ladies couldn't figure out the key. At this time, the 2 of them turned to look at Niu Niu and asked, good boy, why? Niu Niu didn't understand why, so she could only walk over and sigh with them. After taking one look at these unlucky children, Mrsku turned around and walked into the shop. After a while, she came out carrying a big iron pot. Grandma Gu, how much did it cost? Shen Changfeng asked immediately. Shen Ling also opened her big eyes, anxiously waiting for the old lady's answer. 370 articles, Mrsku said casually. 1 piece of silver is 100 cents, and Mrsku's price means that she only cut off 30 cents. Shen Changfeng asked directly, Grandma Gu, you are so powerful, but you can only cut so much money. Shen Ling also nodded vigorously, with a puzzled look on his face, and even asked in a low voice, Grandma Gu, are we dragging you down? The boss saw that we are a team. Mrsku shook her head and said, what does this have to do with you? The price of iron is there. Even if you bargain, it will be difficult to reduce it too much. Shen Changfeng and Shen Ling suddenly realized how they could have imagined this. But even so, by the time they got to the next store, the brother and sister stopped arguing about the price. However, Mrs. Gu took the initiative to say, "How can you stop trying without success? It's normal to hit a wall. Saving money depends on who can be more embarrassed." When the Shen brothers and sisters heard this, they managed to cheer up, but this time Shen Ling learned the lesson and asked Mrs. Gu in a low voice, "Grandma Gu, can the things in this shop be cut in half?" Mrs. Gu couldn't help laughing and said, "You can try it." Shen Changfeng walked in and asked the price. "It's too expensive." "It's cheaper, 50 cents, Shen Changfeng still gave it half the price. The shop owner immediately said loudly, "Hey, young man, you are young and don't seem to be short of money. Why are you here to tease us? Let me tell you, if you ask from the street to the end of the street, no one will dare to give you this price. I have an 80-year-old mother above me and a baby waiting to be fed. You are asking our family to die." The shop owner's chatter made Shen Ling and Shen Changfeng couldn't help but blame themselves. "Is the price you quoted really excessive?" Shen Ling even wanted to pay for the item on the spot at its original price. Mrs. Gu ran over like a gust of wind, slapped the table hard, and said with great momentum, "Sell it if you can, no nonsense." After Xiao Fubao's life was stolen, she became the favorite of the Beijing group. Author, Muyun Shen. Chapter 270. No matter how loud the shop owner's voice was, it was never louder than Mrs. Gu's. As Mrs. Gu gets older, her ears are not so sensitive, and she usually makes loud noises unconsciously. The shop owner was really stunned by Mrs. Gu. He shrank his neck in fear and said, "I have a small business and I can't afford to bargain like this." Mrs. Gu said, "If you can't afford it, if you really don't want to sell it, we can just find another one, and we can still embarrass you." "My family." The shop owner wanted to continue complaining. Mrs. Gu made a statement on the spot, "I don't care about your family. I don't have time to chat with you. Children, let's go." The shop owner immediately stopped being a monster and said, Okay, 80 cents, I'll sell it." "No, 50 cents, Mrs. Gu was determined. The boss continued, 75 cents, it can't get any cheaper." Mrs. Gu used to be patient with him, but now she just said decisively, 50 when, no less nonsense. The boss had no idea at all and said, "Old lady, you are so powerful, just 50 cents, just think of it as making a friend." When she left the shop, Shen Ling still looked frustrated, but Shen Changfeng cheered, "We bought it. We are good at bargaining." Hearing this, Shen Ling turned her head and looked at Shen Changfeng in disbelief. Shen Changfeng shrank from being stared at and said, I also helped." Mrs. Gu patted Shen Changfeng on the shoulder and said, "Changfeng is right, thanks to Changfeng's help." Shen Changfeng straightened his back again. Mrs. Gu discovered the problem with the brother and sister. They always had no confidence when bargaining. Don't believe what these shop owners say. If they can't get rid of the pot, or if there are seniors and juniors, they really don't want to sell to you, so they won't tell you so much. They should expel you just like the previous iron shop did. Go out. Since they are willing to talk to you, it proves that there is still room for things to be discussed carefully. Mrs. Gu patiently taught her life experience to the Shen brothers and sisters. Even though she knew in her heart that based on their backgrounds, these two people might not be able to use these market skills in their lives, she still taught them seriously. The Shen brothers and sisters learned this just for fun. Seeing how carefully the old lady taught her, they all listened obediently. Even Niu Niu listened very seriously. After Niu Niu heard what the old lady said, she whispered, "Grandma, you actually have a face that is good at bargaining. When they see you, the shop owners are afraid. Mrsku laughed after hearing this and said, "Grandma has a firecracker temper. She was like this when she was young. After so many years, she still can't change it. The world's requirements for women are always to be gentle, virtuous, and have a bad temper, which is actually not a good thing." But Niu Niu said, "Pao Zhan has a fierce temper. No one else dares to bully Grandma. I want to learn to be as good at fighting as Aunt Lu and as good at bargaining as Grandma." When Mrsku heard this, she immediately said, "This won't work. When your father gets admitted to the imperial examination, you will be an official lady in the future, and you must look like an official lady." Niu Niu tilted her head and asked, "If you become an official lady, can't you be more powerful?" Mrsku didn't know what to say for a moment. But the real official lady on the side was still nodding. "Yes, Grandma Gu, it is always good to learn more skills. Maybe you will be able to use them sometime," Shenling said. Mrsku really couldn't figure out what kind of situation it was that a lady from the official family had to learn how to fight and quarrel with others. Shenling added, "I also figured it out. Grandma Gu's aura was too strong. When she rushed in to pat the table with the shop owner just now, I almost thought I saw my mother." When Mrsku heard this, she immediately beamed with joy, but soon she calmed down and said, "Look at what you kid said, your mother is the eldest princess, and I am just an old lady from the countryside. I only have a little business skills, how can I do that? Compare me to your mother." Shenling wanted to say more, but was stopped by Mrsku. Although the old lady likes to be praised, she also understands the principle of being humble and disrespectful. She said, "Return the child, don't say such words again, it is not a good thing for others to listen." Shenling didn't say anything more, just asked, "Grandma Gu, the shop owner is so afraid of you, probably because he was overwhelmed by your momentum. My brother and I are too young, maybe if we are older, we can be so scared." Mrsku said, "You are kind-hearted, but you are always afraid that others will suffer losses, so you are like this. Just do this with me. Don't be afraid of embarrassment. Anyway, if you can sell it, we will go to the next one. If you can't, we will go to the next one. Do you really want to buy it? If you can't bargain for something, let's just say a few soft words and coax it." With the encouragement of Mrsku, the Shen brothers and sisters plucked up the courage to enter a shop. After a cup of tea, the two of them ran out happily and happily circled around Niu Niu and Mrsku. "We bought it. It cost us a full 20 cents, Shen Changfeng's face was full of excitement. Shenling's face turned red with excitement. "I didn't listen to the boss's nonsense, so I just followed what you taught me, Grandma. I was so fierce. I pulled my brother and wanted to leave. The boss was so scared that he quickly lowered the price." Mrsku also felt very pleased when she saw the two of them starting their training. Niu Niu was the only one standing by. After being happy for them, she looked at their empty hands and asked, "What did you buy?" "The copper basin I bought." After Shenling said this, she looked at Shen Changfeng. Shen Changfeng also looked at Shenling blankly. The money was paid, but the two of them were so excited that they forgot to pick up the goods. After a while, the brother and sister quickly rushed into the shop not far behind them. When the shop owner saw the two of them returning to get the basin, he suddenly felt regretful and lied casually, "I shouted several times, but you didn't hear me." The two took the copper basin they had chosen and walked out happily. But as soon as it was delivered to Mrsku, the old lady couldn't help but frown. "There is a hole in this basin," Mrsku said, lifting the basin and looking at the sky. The two brothers and sisters were inseparable from grains and did not check the things when they bought them. At this time, seeing such an obvious hole, Shen Changfeng said quickly, "This boss has such a dark heart, I will go find him." Shen Changfeng rushed into the shop, and soon ran out dejectedly, "They don't want to admit it, forget it, I'll buy another one from somewhere else, and I'll pay for it. But Mrs. Gu said, no need. The old lady took the 3 children and rushed into the shop again. The shop owner didn't admit it at first, but was old Madame Gu that easy to bully? Sue the official. I'm going to sue the official now. If you do this business, I'll see how the government decides. Mrs. Gu slapped the table too many times today, and her hands were a little sore.